Welcome to the SIG Architecture Conformance Office Hours meeting. My name is Hippie Hacker, and we are being recorded, so be on your best behavior, specifically the Kubernetes Community Code of Conduct, which basically says be kind. And I'm going to share my screen and go through our meeting notes today. Share screen, choose number 2. Okay. Today is April 21st. If someone wants to be note taker, that would be great. We had some AIs from last week. We'll go through first. Clayton and Caleb, they were going to connect on some a test helper, and just want to make sure that is moving forward. Caleb, do you have an update on
that? We've come across taken a look at the pod distribution budget helpers, and can't seem to see anything similar for, I think the resource was replication controller.
Okay.
So probably need to create tooling similar to that. I don't think Clayton's on the call at the moment, but that's all from me.
All right, we'll leave that as a continuing AI for this week. We also have some, we agreed that we would try to get some collective agreement on the behavior kept use cases. So, John, did you have any feedback specifically on that? As I want to go through anything there?
No, I mean, I saw people reviewed it. I appreciate that. So I think we just need to, I guess I iterated again on Friday and added a few more things starting to get into the solutions. This is, I think people reviewed it after I did that.
Okay.
So I didn't have anything more yet, but probably need to do yet another revision on it. Just trying to get it, I want to get enough detail in there that we can just close out that PR and move forward. So that's all I want to say there. I do want, on the profiles one, did we get any comments on that? I'd also like to start moving that one forward more.
Let's see what we had here. Derek. And I did review it and it looks good.
Okay. All right. Then
I saw you some comments on that one.
I need to review people's changes. I mean, right now, I guess we can, that's right. We try to do merge and iterate with these caps. So probably we should go ahead and merge it. I see Derek's question. I would love that, right? But I mean, that would be a super cool thing, because if you could discover from a cluster what profiles it supports, that would be like, then you start talking about tooling where your Helm chart declares the profile it needs, and you can actually have tooling that says, hey, I can't deploy to this cluster, it's missing this profile, which would be really slick. That's not a phase 1 thing, but it's nice.
All right, I'm going to comment and move along. And well, I'm going to leave that and not make another AI on that one for now. We'll iterate forward. A quick review for our statistics since our last release. We do have our 5 new endpoints and our 11 here that are completed and done. I think we have some stuff that was in the midst of merging that we didn't get in time before 5 p.m. yesterday when we did the update.
There was something you asked me, and I did approve it, but it needs an approver from framework.
Just did that.
I think Aaron can do that, I think.
Yeah, I just did that.
Oh,
thanks for that. I went currently our cycle, at least for the way that I've set stuff up for our OKRs, is listed on January, like quarterly. And I kind of wanted to possibly move that into our release cycle because it matches when the deadline is to get the test merged. And that's going to look different this year, very likely. So the Q2, like for 119, it may move as late as into July or later. I went and had some conversations on SIG release to get some details on that, but I didn't capture that information in this conversation yet.
Yeah, so we should see a PR. There was a big discussion on SIG release this morning about this, and yesterday.
Okay.
Meeting, but I don't think that yesterday Steven sent out an email talking about a 3-week push, but we've asked for 6, and it seems like people are in agreement with that. So it's likely release date is mid-August, 119, and then basically instead of doing 3 releases for the remainder of the year, we'll do 2. We'll do 2 4-month releases, and then we'll reevaluate in the new year about whether that we want to keep that cadence for 3 months.
Yep. With the reason I'm bringing it up in the conformance meeting is trying to make sure that we're setting goals or objectives that match the community cycle. So give us a month or so to refigure that out. And so in 4 weeks from now, so the AI for my team is redo the OKRs to be matched to the release cycle.
One of the concerns I had, I didn't get a chance to show up to the SIG release meeting this morning because I had a conflict, is it doesn't seem like the code freeze date is moving substantially, which means that the amount of time you're going to be able to spend writing conformance tests and getting them included is actually going to be reduced overall, because there's a suggestion of not opening up to 120 development until 119 has officially gone out the door. Whereas today, the older way of doing things was like you could start writing 120 aimed tests a little sooner.
So if I can comment, the idea there is to slow down future work, but future work can continue, or the conformance test can continue more like on a, well, the mitigation for that, I guess I'll put it this way, the mitigation for that is to create feature branches. And that's something where I have mixed feelings about myself.
Yeah, I appreciate the decision being made to use that without consulting anybody who's working on the supporting infrastructure and is aware of the state of feature branch support for all that stuff. So I think what we would want from a conformance perspective is some kind, we used to use code freeze as the deadline. Maybe there's some other deadline we should be aware of that like we can still target 119, but then at a certain point we should no longer be allowed to add new tests or promote.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also part of that long code freeze is for stability and for focusing on things like tests. I mean, you know, tests don't add risk to the release. They reduce risk. And the part of the goal of the longer cycle, well, not the longer cycle, but the longer code freeze period is to reduce risk. So I think that there could be some discussion we can have with the release team around test additions in that period.
Sure. If I were a member of the CI Signal team or in that role, I would still want a date by which you're not allowed to add tests anymore. Because I start to, as a human, understand the behavior of the jobs and what is expected. And so we don't want to chase after a moving target. So I still think there has to be a deadline by which we add the tests. I'm just concerned that since the code freeze date hasn't moved at all, we should ask if there's a better deadline for us to use.
Okay.
Well, should we ask CI Signal? Or should we ask SIG release?
I think it's got to be a decision of the release team as a whole.
Okay.
I mean, the PR merging this is not, the PR updating this policy is not merged, right? In fact, the PR is not updated for the discussion 3 hours ago. So, you know, it's not a final say yet. So, Aaron, if you've got some concerns, you may want to raise those there.
Sure.
Our AIs here are to figure these out by asking the release team as a whole. Is that a good capture? Thumbs up. The primary, is there any other comments on the normal agenda? I'm actually I want to put the board last because we go through the board as much time as we have. But one thing I wanted to note is that we haven't updated our P zeros and stuff up here in over a year and maybe even a year and a half. We're not focusing on pod spec right now. And we actually are doing watches, but we're doing it by writing test helpers, I think, at the moment. Just wanted to quickly visit that before we went further. It seems like the core function, the focus on core functionality of the system has been moved over to focusing on behaviors, probably over pod spec. But I just wanted to, that's what I'm hearing. And that doesn't match what I see at the top of the list.
Behaviors is the machinery by which we cover things, right? So that's the content of the system we want to cover would still be, I mean, I think we probably have pretty good coverage on pod spec right now. And that may be why we're, you know, like if your endpoints have moved off of pod spec. I think, Jeffrey, do you remember, I think you looked some at the behaviors we've defined for pod spec right now, and then you started to do conversion of existing tests, and then we would see that coverage. I don't know if how far along that was that we can say. I'd love to have a number and be able to say pod spec behaviors are covered 80% by the existing tests, and I don't know that number right now, and there's probably additional behaviors to write, but in that sense, if we look at Kubernetes and we say what areas are most critical to ensure we have conformance coverage, that's why pod spec is listed there. If we feel that we probably have really good coverage there right now, or the best coverage that we have, maybe we look at other areas. So there's the priority of the sub-project from the point of view of what we want to get done, and there's the priority of what are the most important parts of Kubernetes to ensure are covered in a conformance suite. And that's where I guess we can discuss what that thing listed at the top is.
Yeah. That may be related because of that we're looking at endpoints right now, and we're just moving out of core. We're as far as some of our initial endpoints for increasing the coverage. When we stopped looking at the variations of the parameters, and then as an API step, we stopped doing that a little bit while ago. We're waiting on the coverage, so maybe it's fine. I like it.
I think, like,
I would like to add that I don't think we have the full list of behaviors yet, so like we can't get the coverage metric currently. But once we do have that full list, I think then we can like start getting the numbers.
Okay, so I can take another look at that and see. We need two things. We need the full list, and we need the tagging of tests with behavior IDs. And we're working on that, but okay. So I take the action item of taking another crack at pod spec behaviors, and eventually these sort of things we would rely on the SIGs to do, but I still don't want to distract them until I have a really clean end-to-end process for them.
Thank you, John. And thank you, Joe. Anything else before we go to the board? Because that tends to run the rest of the meeting. And probably won't this time. I think we're getting pretty good at the board. I'm gonna close this one and close this one. So the way we go through the board, the most important stuff is all the way on the right-hand side. So we've got this needs approval for promote resource lifecycle test.
Sorry, Hippie. The needs approval there is specifically needs approval from the behavior approver or the conformance approvers, test data approvers, which is the same behavior approvers. But like one of them, I moved to done because that was done, but it wasn't fully approved yet. So if you look in the done, that top one, maybe now that one. My point is that if it specifically needs approval from me or Clayton or Brian,
Right.
then it's in that column. But that doesn't, not the same as done. I don't know if we should do anything about that in the board, or we should just, what it means is that done doesn't mean done, it means.
Please don't overload the done column. I ignore
Okay, we'll just leave it in needs approval then, if it needs approval by anybody, instead of specifically by.
We can make a new, I mean, I think eventually we want to live in a brave new world where there are test approvers and there are behavior approvers, and we could have 2 columns for that if you want to do that.
We want to rename it to need some approval.
No, it's the note in there that's specific. Let's just leave it for now. I just want to make sure, I just want to be clear here. That means I won't move it to done now until it's basically merged.
Yeah, automation will do that. When the merged, it automatically gets moved to done.
Okay, so then we'll just not, I will never move it to done manually again.
All right, we'll start at the top of the list now. And my computer's being a little bit slow, so I'm hoping this will go fine. It's quite slow. Let's see. This is a promotion. I'm just going to hit end to go to the bottom to see where we're at. And thank you for the override. And this will likely merge. So I don't think we need to look at this further. And it will go to the done column on itself, and we'll get 4 points. Thank you. Do we need an LGTM?
I just did that.
Ah, thanks.
I haven't looked at this board in a while, so I might be doing things on the fly.
We're here together today to make this move forward. This is another one that's +4. It is a promote. I'm just going to go to the bottom and scroll up a little bit. And we just got an LGTM. But I must have looked at the same one twice. Let's close that one. Well, I'm not super impressed. I've got a new Mac, and I'm not super impressed so far with the speed. Let me try this one.
I remember what it is. Okay, hang on. So the endpoints resource lifecycle test, there's a hold on that PR. And I feel like the reason we put a hold on that PR is because I had questions about whether the test was actually going to fail during the non-happy path. Like how was the test going to behave if the watch timed out? And I feel like we never got an answer to that. So I know we spent a lot of time verifying that the test verifies the happy path and that it's flake free, but I don't know if this test will like meaningfully fail if and run against a provider that doesn't adequately support these behaviors.
So you're saying let's let the timeout fail and see what happens?
Yeah, I feel like where we left it last week, this is sort of why Caleb needed to collaborate with Clayton, was because Caleb had figured out if you set the timeout to something aggressively short, the test still passed.
It's as if the timeout did nothing. At least locally, I'm not sure. Maybe I tried it with the CI, but I at least did it locally and it made no difference.
Okay. So, I mean, we can force it locally. You can force it to time out, and if nothing happens, then yeah, there's some error we're not catching. That
I mean, y'all are free to tell me I'm a curmudgeon. It's just this is a pattern that a lot of our tests follow,
No,
and so
that's a mess. We can't have tests that don't fail when they're supposed to fail. But there's no point in having the test then.
Right. So I personally haven't had any time to follow up and dig into this. It's not clear to me looking at the trail of comments on the PR that anybody else has looked at this either.
Caleb and I have looked at, I would like to get a general pattern moving forward with helpers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what we had talked about with Caleb, we brought up earlier with Clayton, was you guys were going to work on a thing where you use the watch to just collect everything into an array, and then you check the contents of the array, as opposed to actively processing the watch as it comes in.
Do we want to unapprove and move that one back, and mention Clayton in that one, or do we want to write?
I don't know we need that full machinery in order to do this, but we do need to understand what Aaron said, which is if the watch times out and therefore we don't hit all of what happens, right? I mean, can we drill into that for a minute? Because
which
as I
one
recall,
is it? Event or endpoint? Endpoints or event?
Endpoint.
Endpoints. I think I have the concern on all of these, but endpoints is the one where I have a hold right now.
So if we go look at that, as I recall, we're ranging through the channel, and if we don't get the things we're looking for, then the watch will time out, and then the question is, what you get back from the channel is that the channel's closed, and so you don't get the event you were expecting. So I would think you would fail, but it depends a little bit on how the test is written. So I was saying drill into the code actually of the test.
Okay.
So you're saying that like for watch event from range from the channel, you'll think you'll get back.
You have to expand you just have to expand the service.go file there.
You're saying instead of getting a watch event at all, I would get something different?
You should get, when your channel closes, you should get a nil watch event, I think, or your range will just end, your loop will end, right? So channel closes, you will never get watch type added, and so it will be just equivalent to a break. So you need a flag in there that says that you got the added you expected. Otherwise, the timeout looks exactly like, right now it's saying watch type event is added break. Okay, so you stop the loop, but if the channel closes, you stop the loop and you don't know the difference. Now you would know the difference when you go down later, so depending on how the rest of the thing is written, it may fail, but it depends on how the rest of the test is written. Does that make sense, Caleb? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah, that was the thing that tripped me up. At the very end, you delete the thing, and then you expect that there's no error from the client issuing a delete. So you verify the client successfully issued a delete. Now you need to verify that the delete has been actuated on the API server. And you do that by watching for a delete watch event. But if you don't actually verify anything. So yeah, you probably need a found delete equals false. And then you go through that loop and you set that to true. And then there you go.
Yes,
and then
that's absolutely right. And right now, a break and a closed channel are equivalent, and so you don't know. And that's all that happens. There's no error return from this, right? There's I don't know when the watch times out. I don't know if they push a watch event down that says watch timed out. But even if they, or they just close the channel, but even if they did, the way the code's written here, you would just be like, cool, it closed and we're all good. That's a good catch, Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was just looking at the event resource lifecycle test. It doesn't use watch events in following this pattern. So I am fine with that being approved in LGTM.
All right. Let's do the appropriate actions on this particular PR to kick back. So the hold is there, right? And so let's be really clear in the hold that Clayton, is it smarter Clayton on here?
Yeah, I don't know that we need Clayton to do anything right now.
No, we don't need Clayton here.
What we need is just the test to be changed so that it actually looks for whether it got the delete event, not just breaks when it gets a delete event.
Right, another PR to update the test. Are we going to run another PR? Can we do it separately? Because then we got to wait for the 2-week flake and all that. Or...
Well, this might cause it to fail when it wasn't failing before. So unfortunately, we do have to wait the 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, totally. To update the test to
Right.
check for the.
I feel like the bad guy here. I thought I communicated this last, like I'm wondering what I can do to more helpfully get this kind of info across so you are not stuck waiting for another 2 weeks.
I mean, I do think you brought it up. You tried to communicate it. It just
you did. You brought it up. We'll be a little more intentional in going back through the meeting notes because often I'm trying to take notes and listen and do the call, and so I think we might get on my team to go back and look through the audio.
So just a thing that I try to do is when I notice that there's a hold on a PR, I try and look for the comment that put the hold in place, because usually the person wrote down why they think the PR should be held back from merging, which I think I did in this case. Maybe I didn't, but that's generally how I'm trying to get that across, as well as bringing it up in these meetings.
I think when I looked at this again this week and we saw this job has been continuously failing and not merge blocking. I think I may have accidentally tied together the these two comments, and I shouldn't have. And that was on, and I was not tying things together that didn't need to be tied together. I'll be more aware of that next time. So column wise, let's move that back out into working. So this was promote endpoints. I'm going to move promote endpoints into in progress, because the promotion is now back to being in progress. I'll put it down on the list. If I just drop it, will it go away? All right. And this other promotion, we said it's the event resource lifecycle test is going to happen on its own later today.
Yeah, I'm happy.
So now I'm going to go. I'm going to go back over to my next. I apologize for the speed of my machine. It's a brand new, crazy, nice Mac, and I'm learning how to use it because I'm not a Mac user. But I know a lot of us are. If you know any reason why a new machine would be this slow, I'd love to know. So this is a promote. I'm just going to go down to the bottom and scroll up a bit. We asked for some feedback on here.
But above that, I issued a hold and it's blocked on that PR.
Yeah. And so I think we were going to walk through here, and so it's soaking, but it's soaking based on, maybe it's the wrong column for it. I was trying to get.
Yeah, it's kind of, I wouldn't put anything in that column until we know for sure we're happy with the test.
Okay, so it's the beginning of the 2-week soak cycle, not that, okay.
Yeah,
We'll change that flow.
it's the same thing here. You're not setting a flag and then updating that flag inside of your watch loop. That's the most immediate problem. And then this could be another one of those tests that you will rewrite when you work on a pattern with Clayton or somebody to dump all of the events into an array and then walk through the array and look for what events you expected. Sorry, what watch events you expected.
All right, I'm having to type by because my computer's receiving the events within about 4 seconds after I type them, so I'm typing blind. So if I have typos, please forgive me. So let's go back and move these into the right place then. I'm going to go back to our board, and I'm going to put this back to in progress down here. And now we're going to go through needs review. I'm going to open these with, close these other ones so that they'll be. Being careful so I don't close too many. And then I'm going to do Apple click. Command click. On create service account lifecycle, service account resource lifecycle. We're 2 days ago. Are we passing tests? We are. So this is just a normal review at this point. No comments yet. So let's go ahead and do that review as a group. Do we want to look at the definition? Because we've tried to update all of our tickets so they link back to the right. So in this one, it's not at the top, but it does link back to here. And so what we're trying to accomplish here that we approved a while back is loading. So this is core V1 service account. So we have our mock ticket, our issue, and our PR. And so this, what we're going to look at is going to attempt to cover patch, list, and delete service accounts. And we went through our documentation. The test in general is going to create a service account static label and create a secret and patch it and get the service account to ensure it's patch and list. And we agreed that this flow was okay before we wrote the test. And so the test that we're about to look at is pretty much this test that we had in the initial issue to approve. So if we want to catch these things early, we should do it in this ticket before we say, let's go through and write the test. I'd love for that to happen before PRs get into play. So before, we don't have to look at it here because we're about to look at the test, but just a note, we should look at these a bit closer if we don't like what we see in this next part. And just to verify that this code does increase it, this is the endpoints that increase that give us our 3 points. So now I'm going to go back into this test. We're actually looking at the code itself. And we had to add watch to the build.
So you do have that same problem we already talked about. It's getting the same pattern, so we need to do that with flag.
Let's do that. Back to the conversation. Can somebody take over adding the notes to the ticket? It's extremely painful on my machine to be able to type.
What do we need to add to this ticket? This is the service account test.
It's got the same issue of watch, not the flag.
And it would be on the next time we do our reviews for mock test, and we should probably have a checkbox for gotchas to make sure the patterns that we've had, because this is now 3 different tests we've hit that have the same pattern.
Yeah, we just introduced this. We just introduced this erroneous pattern, right? So, so all these tests have it. But
I know it's good. I'm just trying to capture it, like as part of our review process next time.
Yeah.
For when we do our approval process, just capturing all that, and so the flow is better.
So one thing I see in here is a defer in a test.
We do. All right, let's go back and look. I'm going to pull it up now so it's on the screen together. You see the defer?
Yeah, so we do a defer for the delete. I don't know Ginkgo that well, but wouldn't we be then firing? I don't know. Is that Aaron? Do you know? Is that acceptable in a test?
Why are you deferring?
An additional test within the defer, right? There's actually test stuff in there. I worry
that might be okay. I don't know, but why are we doing the defer in the first place?
I think there was talk a little while ago about making sure that resources are cleaned up when a test breaks, and this is what that would do.
Right. I think though that, well, maybe I should let Aaron answer. I'll say something anyway.
Yeah, I feel as though you're creating something inside of a namespace, and I believe that the test framework will automatically delete everything in the namespace that it created for the test.
That's
correct. You have to do that.
Don't even have to delete resources?
No.
Okay.
Anything you create inside of the namespace that has specifically been created for that test will automatically get deleted when that test finishes, be that a successful finish or a fail.
Now, in this case, you're also testing the delete. So yes, you have to test the delete work, but you don't clean up is automatic.
Okay.
I was able to get the comment in there.
Okay.
I think that might be an artifact of our test writing flow, where in our initial mock ticket, we are not using the Ginkgo framework yet. We're just trying to do something super simple using the docs. That's not Ginkgo specific. And this is a kind of an ask, Caleb. Do you think that's why you were trying to delete the service account, do the deletion if it failed?
Where's the mock ticket for this?
Yeah, so that's over here. This is the one that we approve, and it may or may not be there, but it's patching the service account.
I don't see defer.
I don't see defer either. It was just a thought in my head. We'll run with it. Any other comments on that? Thank you for that review. That was this first one, and I'm going to go now to the second one, which was add behavior. This is Jeff.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm really slow at reviewing these things, but why are we doing something with a secret in a test that's about a service account?
I think I needed to have a secret to exist to be able to test some functionality, maybe patching or just the service account in general. I can't remember.
Service accounts need secrets in order to exist or something like that.
Okay, all right, I see down here you're patching the service account.
Is it because you wanted to, if you wanted to patch the, if you just wanted to patch the service account, then will you patch it with a secret name or something? That, oh, I see, waiting for it to be.
All right, I've had my head in Google Cloud service accounts for the past couple of days, so I kind of don't remember how Kubernetes service accounts work. Telling me secrets is a totally valid field for it to have. Okay. Looking at the API reference.
Go through all the types and find if we're, in some way of deciding a pattern around when we need to test patching, what is the most non-invasive way to ensure that the patch functionality works. And we so far have chosen that based on what's obvious to the person developing the test, not in some more general applicable method.
Right. So you patch the service account with the secret name, but is it actually necessary to have a secret to do that? Or can you just patch it with a secret name? Typically these things, the only thing usually that fails to create is if you don't have the namespace. Most of the time you can create something that references a dangling reference. So I wonder if you even need to create the secret in order to patch the service account to have a secret name. Now, the service account wouldn't function as a real service account, but we're not testing that in this test, which is another thing. But
Yes, I think I agree with what John's saying.
Yeah, that's totally possible.
Where do we create the secret? So I'm just going to say where we do the patching, right here, comment.
Yeah, the only other thought I had is, I guess there's an auto mount service token field. I don't know if that's under your control or not. You could try, you could also try doing that. It's the simple Boolean.
Isn't that in reference to pods though?
No, I'm looking, pasting it in chat here. I'm looking at the 118 API reference for the service account resource type. And auto mount service account token is the second field listed.
Still loading.
Okay.
Fans went crazy.
Yeah, my fan's going nuts on my personal.
Aaron, are you saying to use that field to patch instead of secrets, or how are you meaning?
Yeah, I think that's my suggestion. Y'all are free to tell me I'm wrong, but I think I would prefer a test that relies just on like the least amount of things possible. So if you don't have to go create a secret to exercise the ability to patch a service account, I feel like that's less likely to fail. And so I feel like primitive fields are probably the easiest things to patch compared to object reference fields. But again, I might.
No, I agree with that. That makes a lot of sense. And these are spec fields. The place we've had problems in the past is when we are trying to patch status and fight with the controller, but in this case, which is kind of orthogonal point, but yeah, we should be able to, you're right, Aaron, that makes more sense to use that field.
What
doesn't matter.
Field? I wanted to put that in the.
I'm gonna put it in my review comment here. It's an artifact if you're watching me review this on the fly. So this is about how quickly I move.
I'm going to cancel this comment that I'm writing. Because it'll take me about that long to load the next screen. I'll figure out why my machine is not delightful to move along. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the next one. This is Jeff's.
we're still not done with the other one.
Okay.
It does the life cycle, but it doesn't look like, oh, I see, it's in the defer, delete, sorry. Yeah, so that's gonna move out of the defer. Okay, we're good. There was, in some of the past ones, there was this delete by collection endpoint. Do we wanna, oh, I see, you are doing that, delete collection. Okay. And
That's
the
just
delete
to hit
collection,
a different endpoint. Sorry, go ahead.
well, that was what I was gonna ask, like, is there, I don't know how that works, like delete collection versus delete. Are we ever hitting delete, or are we only hitting delete collection now?
It just depends on the endpoints that need to be hit by it, because those are two completely separate endpoints, which achieved completely differently. So
we're
delete.
incidentally getting delete in some other test, and so we only did delete collection here.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's happening. And ideally, we don't test things incidentally. And this is a lifecycle test, so
I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're saying. Sorry.
I'm saying that we won't get us more endpoint coverage, but because delete is probably already tested by some other, implicitly by some other test somewhere. But ideally, these lifecycle tests would explicitly test the lifecycle events, delete, and delete collection, both separately, as opposed to, like right now, you're adding this test and it adds delete collection, which we didn't have before. And but we do have delete before, probably because some other test deletes a service account somewhere. But it's not an explicit test of that functionality. It's just implicit in some other test. And if somebody changes that test, like we're changing, for example, we're taking the secret out of here. We are deleting a secret. What if that was the only place we tested deleting a secret because we saw there was no endpoint coverage, and we saw there already was endpoint coverage, so we didn't bother, and then it actually goes down because we don't have an explicit test. So I'm just trying to say, in general, if we're doing this, we're writing a lifecycle test, can we explicitly test delete and delete collection both? That's all.
Okay.
Which might create another one.
Yep.
I'm gonna try to add that comment.
I did. I just added that
Thank you.
comment. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Eric.
Getting on your side.
This is a good review, and it's going to change a lot of how we'll try to capture some of this and how we write our mock test going forward. I'll go ahead and close this one out. And then our next one was the add behavior from Jeff. And most of the back and forth has been we overrided because we had a test that was failing, and some feedback from John.
Yeah, this is us still iterating on what is appropriate to just what behaviors are appropriate to describe here.
Do we want to go through that, or do we want to go on to the tests for this time?
I don't know that we need to go through this. I mean, people can read it in their own time. The main, this is more about the behavior stuff than, if people have questions, comment on the PR.
Yeah, but I think it's a good example where like the service account test we just reviewed, like I would probably describe that there's a create service account, there's a patch service account, there's a delete service account, behavior. All three of those are being exercised in that one test. Right.
Yeah.
So we're looking for behaviors to be that level of granular.
Yes. What this actually says is in general, so the patch test hits another endpoint, right? But realistically, from a behaviors point of view, it's not a particularly useful test. This is what this comment says if you read it. It's equivalent, is that what we would want is to actually test that the intended effect of that spec field actually works, right? So it's the data plane, not just the control plane. So we would actually go, when we're testing, when we have a behavior about auto mount things, it would say, when this is set to true, and you create a pod that uses this service account, this is what happens. When it's set to false, and you create a pod with using the service account, this is what would happen. And the test would have to cover all of those things. So a general, specifically this test, this behavior that was described in this comment was a similar thing, that it was patching some field. And it gets that endpoint coverage, but it doesn't really get any, it's not a meaningful behavior to just know that the patch works. And so I wouldn't want to create a behavior that says patch works, right? That's, right. I would want to create a behavior that says patching this field has this effect. You know, that's the point of this comment. It's fine, the endpoint coverage metric, but when we get to behaviors and we're talking about behaviors of service accounts, that test's not gonna be sufficient to cover those behaviors.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that. We have a promotion from SPIFX. 80545. And
I think I had not looked at this since Huang had commented on it. I addressed his comment. I think this is ready for a review by a behavior approver. And moving it into the needs approval column.
so if you just move it rather than comment, I think. Oh no, it is by behavior approver. Do we have that tag yet?
Hmm?
Do we have the behavior approval CC yet?
No.
I thought we did.
There's an owner's alias. I don't think there's a GitHub.
It doesn't. Okay. Let me know if there's something I need to fill in the blanks there.
Column, that's sufficient.
All right, I'm going to go move this. We're going to go back to our column, and that was the
preemption.
Where did it go?
It's already there. It's already been moved.
Oh, thank you. And so the motivation for components profiles, that was what a PR we talked about earlier. And then the create pod cycle life cycle test. Is that the one we just talked about? Yeah, pod status. This is a cleanup. And go down to test. There was some resolved issues there, and he updated it to address the issue. Retest. Neil it had a trove of information that we acted on. Is that right, Caleb?
Yep, there's plenty of things to go through, which is really
plenty of
welcome.
things. We can go through those. Thank you for reviewing. And he says, and then a minor go format, which got addressed.
Same problem in this test. You're not, if you watch.
Yeah, exactly. I had the same comment as the previous discussion here. How can we surface the watch timeout as an error?
So the more appropriate way for all of these tests to be written is to use some kind of utility function that actually reconnects whenever the watch times out or the connection is broken. In one of these myriad PRs, I feel like I linked, no, I take that back, I did not. So that's, because watch timeouts are bound to happen in a cluster that's like loaded and at scale. So ideally, we'd like these tests to be written in a way where they're not susceptible to watch timeouts, but they instead just reconnect unless we want them to, you know, stop waiting after some interval in the same way that we do like a wait dot poll until some timeout that we as the test authors define. Did I answer your question?
The watch timeout we're talking about is the one we define. But there is another thing you can have happen. It's not a timeout, but you have to disconnect and reinitiate.
Right, but the weird thing is, like, we define the watch timeout at the very beginning of the test. So we say we expect this test in toto to take this much time. Whereas the thing about the wait.poll calls is we're like, we expect the change to be actuated within this interval. So it's like a more granular way of specifying how long we expect something to happen.
Yes.
Which we're not doing with these watches.
So, yeah, I mean, I think this gets back to what we already discussed last time, which is we need this helper function to load everything into an array and then process the array. What you can do, ideally we resolve that, but what you can do in the interim is that watch timeout would cause the channel to close, which means you'd leave your loop. So if you do the Boolean flag, like we talked about, like found and deleted equals false, and then you're waiting, and if it never gets set to true, your break changes to found deleted equals true, and then break. And if it never gets set to true, then you know that you timed out or whatever. That's subject to potential for flakiness due to watches that, for whatever reason, need to be restarted, get broken, or due to flakiness for, like Aaron was saying, that the whole test takes longer than the watch timeout. And that's why we need the better utility function. Given that we've got like 3 or 4 of these tests right now, maybe we just really need to focus on the utility function. Have you had a chance to set up a call with Clayton? Or I think you're going to have to be, he's busy, you're going to have to like chase him a little bit to make it happen.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
We have not yet.
Maybe might be better for your time-wise for you to take that, to chase Clayton down instead of changing all 3 or 4 of these tests and then having to change them all again.
Yeah. I think we're at time. That was good. We've got a really clear thing, and I look forward to seeing the things that we have gotten ready to merge. If you have time to go through some of the issues on the board in another session or on your own, that would be great.
I did want to say one last thing while I'm here. The replication controller lifecycle test is the top flake right now. I really need to see that fixed, or we gotta get it out of the critical path. So I would appreciate my attention in reviewing it too, but I would appreciate your attention in fixing that test to not be so flaky.
I'll be spending some more time on that today again.
Okay.
Also,
there's a PR right now for that. Does that not fix it?
The update here is the one that should fix it, right? And let's see if this removes the flakes. That was 2 days ago.
Okay. And then it failed on something.
Doing the best we can, Captain. Oh, good.
Basil. Shocking. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, poke me about this. I have poked you verbally in a recorded format. Please poke me if I'm not being attentive enough to this, because I don't like causing our contributors pain with flakes.
Will do. Understood. We'll make the flakes go away. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for your time and attention.
thank you.
See you later.
Cheers.